Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. You may be seated. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda, and I would move it.
Second?
Motion by Nelson, seconded by Bittinger. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. Items 2 through 8 constitute a consent agenda of routine action items to be considered by one motion. Items pass unanimously unless a separate vote is requested by a board member. Item 2 is approval of the minutes of the March 24th, 2026 meeting. Item 3 is approval of claims. Item 4 from Board Administration Karen James, approval of resolution for a tax suspension for initials BH. Item 5, Board Administration Heather Satterwhite, is approval of notice of property sale resolution for parcel ending in 8016, aka 2715 South Cleveland Street, for Tuesday, April 14th at 4:35 p.m. Item 5 from Board Supervisors Dan Bittinger is approval of a letter of commitment for the Boost Restart Grant Project. Item 7 from Board of Supervisors, myself, approval of a letter of support for the Woodbury County Veteran Affairs. Item 8 from Human Resources, Melissa Thomas. Item A is approval of a memorandum of personnel transactions. Item B is authorization to initiate the hiring process. And item C is approval of retiree request to remain on health, dental, and vision insurance. I would move the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Nelson, seconded by Dietrich. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. All right, from item 9, item 9 from Siouxland District Health, Kevin Green, as approval to appoint a 2-member subcommittee to serve as board representatives for discussions with Ida County on merging public health services.
Yes, this is a follow-up to my visit 2 weeks ago related to this. And one of the things we're looking at moving forward to have all voices at the table that need to be from the governing entities was really appointment of 2 members of this Board of Supervisors to participate, or I guess I said 2, it could be 1. That's be your discretion and availability. But I do have 2 Board of Health members from Ida County next week at the Siouxland District Board of Health. I'll also be requesting 2 members to be a part of this discussion. So that's the request for today. And any questions?
You said there's a meeting next week, Kevin? What day is
The
it?
Board of Health will be on next Wednesday, and we'll get the 2 Board of Health members appointed there.
Okay.
So it'd be 2 Board of Health members, and then the appointments from here, and then 3 representatives from Ida County.
Okay.
Any other questions for Kevin? I would move it.
Second?
Motion by Nelson, seconded by Bittinger. All those, or any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0.
Okay,
Not to belabor the vote, but it says identify 2 members.
Oh.
Did we do that?
I thought that they were Siouxland District
Or is
Health Board
that
members,
later?
but you're wanting 2 board members.
Board
from
of,
here.
yeah, up to 2 from here, from the Board of
Okay.
Supervisors.
So we should go back and appoint, or I guess, are there any
Okay.
volunteers that would like to serve on this? Dave?
I mean, I'm on the liaison to the Siouxland
Okay, so
District.
Dave and Dan.
You want me just to do it? That's fine.
Okay.
What time are the meetings going to be held?
I think what we're going to try to do because of proximity is virtual meetings, and it'll be availability upon all the members. Once they're appointed, I'll be setting those up. So that's kind of what I propose would probably be in the best interest and efficient.
It's just with my other job. I'm always scheduled Wednesdays, so.
All right, Dave and Dan. So I guess Auditor Scaff, do you want us to redo that motion and add in that we're appointing Supervisor Bittinger and Dietrich in that motion?
Yeah, you can amend it.
Okay, so I'd like to amend that motion. The appointees from the Board of Supervisors would be Supervisor Binger and Supervisor Dietrich. Want me to call another vote? Do you want me to call another vote?
Yeah,
Okay,
yes, please.
all right. Do we have a second for that amendment?
Second.
Seconded by Binger. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. Thank you,
Right.
Dan.
Thank
Dave.
you.
Let's see here. We are a little ahead of our set time for you, Kenny, so I think we will, some of these are kind of, I guess, we'll jump into item 11. James, we can let you give us a little background and we'll go from there.
Okay, that would be fine. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thanks so much for the opportunity to be here. I am here this afternoon to present to you a 28E agreement with the city of Cushing. As most of you know, I made it a real effort of mine when I ran for county attorney to be involved with all the communities out in Woodbury County. It just felt to me, after having many discussions with them, that they just didn't seem that their voice was heard. So I made it a continued effort on my part to continue to go out there and to go to their city council meetings and continue to meet with them. One of the concerns that I have heard consistently throughout the last 3+ years is one, a lack of resources, and two, just dealing with certain residents of their communities that are giving them fits, for the lack of a better term. They're not in compliance with city ordinances, and they're just struggling with what to do. In my last meeting here a few weeks ago with the city of Cushing, again, the comment was made by one of their city council members that we feel trapped in our own city. They've made efforts to try and address these issues with residents within their communities. It's generally the nuisance issues. They're not cleaning up their properties. They're just kind of an eyesore, to be frank. In driving through the town of Cushing, I identified those properties fairly quickly. And the issue always is in resources, and they don't always have the resources to hire outside counsel to help with that. The city of Cushing had done that previously. It didn't go as well as they wanted to. It wasn't ruled in their favor, and so they're just really struggling with what to do. And this is a thought that I have had to try and assist the city of Cushing in this way and prosecute some of those nuisance violations to see if we can't move the ball forward a little bit and help them out, simply because of a financial strain that their city has. And so I'm offering up the assistance of the county attorney's office to assist with that. I've talked with them. It's going to be on a limited basis. We're not taking over the code enforcement of the city of Cushing, but it's an effort to try and help in isolated incidents. And so that's the reason that I present it to you. I do believe that we need approval from the Board of Supervisors before we do that. It's not going to cost the county any additional money. It's just an additional task that I'm having my office take on to help and assist with that effort. And so I'm presenting that 28E agreement for the board's approval this afternoon. I did attach it. It was partially signed, but the signature that remains would be that from the Board of Supervisors. But if there's any questions that you might have, I'd be happy to answer those or address those. But I'd be looking for approval from the board and a signature from the chair, Mr. Nelson, and somebody else on the Board of Supervisors so that I can then file it and move forward with that effort.
Appreciate the background, James. We'll do this public hearing on the elevator and then we'll come back and we can have the
Sounds good.
discussion on the agreement. Thank you. All right, this is our 4:40 set time. This is on item 10 for Building Services Director Kenny Schmitz. Public hearing on the courthouse freight elevator project. Is there, Kenny, anything you want to say before we open this public hearing?
No, other than this is a project that the courthouse really needs to get completed. And yeah, the agenda item is just to conduct the public hearing and receive any questions or comments that someone might have on the project. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, I will open the public hearing regarding the courthouse freight elevator. If anybody wants to speak for or against this project, they may come up and do that now.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to just express a concern, again, I brought it up before, that I'm hoping that the project will start after the November election. If the elevator is still acceptable to be used to move our equipment for elections, for the primary election and the November election. I know during the last election, there was a way that they were able to use the elevator still for our equipment. Be a lot less manual effort that has to be go into it, and so if it could start in mid-November after the general election would be my desire.
Thank you.
Teresa Hebert with CMB Architects is here with us this evening. Teresa, would you come up? I'd like you to comment on that. My comment is the project is really going to be driven by the contractor and/or the vendor, whether it'll be one of the elevator companies. But it's usually driven by their project team. And for the most part, and I'll let Teresa speak to this, for the most part, those teams are dispatched as they receive contracts on prospective projects, and they're usually scheduled out whenever they can get that project team into place. And so I'm going to say normally it's very difficult for them to choose a specific time. But I'll let Teresa speak to that, and please provide your own comments.
Yeah, so usually with elevators, it takes around around 15 to 18 weeks for the factory to build the elevator. And so we'll have plenty of time as we get closer to say, please deliver it, or please hold off once we get close to those, or if we have any surprise elections. That happens sometimes. So we definitely, there's a lot more, there's some flexibility there as long as we're looking ahead, and that'll come down between the contractor and the elevator company. So
Okay.
and we'll keep in touch with Kenny as it moves forward.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you.
Any other comments? Well, seeing no further comments, I move that the public hearing be closed.
Second.
Motion by Nelson, seconded by Dietrich. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pose same sign. Passes 5-0. All right, we will go back to Mr. Loomis here on item 11. We had left off with the given some background about the city of Cushing having a few issues with legal issues with some kind of ordinance enforcement, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I would only say, I think there are other towns out in the county that are also experiencing the same issues, and I've had some discussions with them, and I would intend to maybe do some of those same efforts in some of those communities as well. I just kind of want to do one at a time and see how things go before taking on additional communities that are having some of these same issues. But I'm not going to do one and not help out another community. So if there's another community that I visit that are having some of these issues, I intend to see if my office can provide some assistance with those communities as well. So that's kind of the plan, but again, it's just an effort to do it one at a time and see if it can be effective and if it will work.
When when County Attorney Loomis called me last week to tell me about this, before he even said what community it was, I already had a pretty good idea. This is something that has just plagued them for a long time, and it's actually led to a lot of turnover within city government because somebody new thinks they're going to get something done, and they can't. They hit a wall every time, and there's just a lot of frustration
I
there.
think that's a good word for it, frustration.
Yeah. And so if you're, the whole thing is kind of, comes down to like the financial impact, but if there's none, and if you're taking on a limited base time, and I would assume you would be managing kind of the workload from them as far as what you're doing or not doing.
Yes, I'd stay in charge and oversee the prosecution of that work and working with the city of Cushing. What I've told them is, my office cannot drive out to Cushing to enforce, and investigate the situations. It's going to be an effort where the city council is going to have to work with my office to help with the quote investigation side of things. And then my office would then lead and direct the prosecution side of it.
Sure.
But I would certainly manage and keep an eye on kind of how it's working and be involved in all of those efforts for the city.
Are there communities that you know do not need this? And I'm asking that because by approving this, we are saying, and because you are saying, there's others that are interested and that will be served. So I want to
Yeah.
make sure by approving this, we're not going, that we can go as far as we need to.
I would agree with that, Chairman, or Mr. Hahn. I would say that there probably are communities that don't need that assistance. They've not mentioned those issues to me at the meetings that I've gone to. But there are certainly communities that have mentioned it, and so my focus would be on those. If there are other communities that come forward during my meetings with them, I would certainly have discussions with them, explain that this is limited, but I'm not going to shut the door on them. I don't think that that's an appropriate use of resources. If the office is going to help one community, I would be open to looking and assisting the other communities as well. Certainly appreciating and understanding the concern of if you open the door for one, you open the door for all of them. And so I wouldn't be shutting the door on any community, and I would have discussions with them. But overall, I'm not sure that every community needs that assistance or needs this assistance. The ones that have mentioned it to me are just a few.
And just so we understand, what is the workload like for a nuisance case for you?
Sure. I would consider it to be on the level of a misdemeanor situation where we work with the city documenting the residences that are involved, trying to determine when we have enough what I would consider evidence to move forward with a case and initiate the prosecution of it. And the workload would be simply preparing it for trial. To me, it's not anywhere near the level of most of the trials that I have. It's on the misdemeanor level that probably takes a day or two to kind of get prepared, and probably about an hour's worth of time in the courtroom. Somewhere in that neighborhood would be my guess. And that's something that my office can handle and work with and put an effort towards.
Tina, do you have a comment back there? Okay.
Tina Bertrand, Woodbury County Treasurer. I just wanted to make a couple of comments about special assessments and nuisances and stuff like that, and what some of the other communities can do, and they do, and I'm sure that County Attorney Loomis will help guide them with some of this, which is where I think they do need some of the assistance as well. When a property is not following ordinance, we see a lot with Sioux City, a lot with Sergeant Bluff. The cities do have the ability to go out and clean up some of those properties themselves. A lot of it is with like mowing, snow removal, and then just cleaning up the junkyards that exist. When that happens, as long as they follow the right process, and they can actually certify reimbursements of those costs to the treasurer to be collected with property taxes, and those are actually collected in September time period. But there's always the issue of what happens when they don't pay the property taxes. Some of the properties that we actually bring here for public bidding sometimes fall into that category. And one of the biggest ones that we see are the ones where the homes are demolished. And, the cost to that property becomes $50,000 and it's not worth it. So I just want to, because I know there's going to be other people out there listening and following some of this, that is something that a lot of the smaller communities, what we see coming in is they actually struggle with actually getting some of those ordinances in place and actually getting it through the council process to be able to get it onto the property taxes. So I think the county attorney's office is, and I'm not trying to direct his office and what they can do, but I think it would be very helpful to those communities to be able to have some of that extra legal background and assistance from the county attorney's office to be able to help them through that process, because we see it a lot of times and they just don't know what to do, and the paperwork doesn't always come into us correctly, and so we're having to go back and forth to be able to say, okay, you need to have an ordinance, you need to have a resolution signed, you need to, there's certain process you have to do to be able to get it onto that the tax rolls. So I just, again, just to kind of support what happens with the smaller communities and what might be out there for them. Thanks.
Just to be clear, though, thank you, Tina, for that. Just to be clear, though, I'm not providing legal advice. My office is not providing legal advice to those cities about, you know, getting city ordinances in place and how to go about the tax effort on that. This is simply a prosecutorial role that we're taking. We're enforcing the city code that's already in place. It's very limited to that. The 2080 agreement is very limited to that extent. It doesn't go beyond on that, and I've made that clear in talking with Cushing about that. My office decides who to prosecute, whether we can prosecute, when to appeal, if we do appeal. So it's a very limited role that we're taking. I don't think that it's appropriate for us to take on what is traditionally the city attorney's role. And advisement there. That remains their job, their role to do that. And this is simply a prosecutorial effort, and it doesn't go beyond that. So I understand where you're coming from, and I understand that there are issues beyond that, but that's not the purpose of why I'm here and what I am attempting to do and provide some assistance to these communities in this kind of limited capacity.
The treasurer does bring up a good point, though, about property values, nuisance being related to that, and the board is obviously very interested in making sure properties are not degraded to that point. What are the most typical nuisance issues that you've been asked already to assist with?
So we'll keep it focused on the city of Cushing specifically, and it's mostly the particular property that I'm going to refer to has no electricity and no water, and hasn't had it for some time. It's a building that is in very poor disrepair, and the city can't get into it to actually see what's going on inside the building, but anyone driving by would see that it's in very poor repair. They made an effort to do something with this particular resident last year, and they weren't successful in that effort. Promises were made by this particular person that things were going to get done and fixed, and lo and behold, we remain in the same position, or there's no real change in the condition of the property. So, and it's structural kind of things. It just looks in very poor disrepair. There's a garage, I'm going to put in quotes, a garage that's attached to the residence that has tarps hanging on the sides of it. There is various items strung throughout and sitting outside this particular residence. So what you would consider, or what I would consider, just general nuisance ordinance kind of violations that, cities want their cities to look nice and appealing, and their neighbors want to be able to have neighbors that take care of their properties, right? I mean, that's kind of what we want. And to me, that's what I would identify as kind of the nuisance that I'm referring to.
But it goes beyond just the aesthetics too, because I know in a different community, and I know the property that you're talking about, but in a different community, there was a similar situation, and it becomes a public safety issue too, because if you've got a house that someone is hoarding stuff inside, and they're not taking care of it, it's in disrepair, you've got electrical wires showing whatever, that house starts on fire, at a minimum, probably the one on either house, on either side of it is affected also. And that can be affecting that neighbor's house before the fire departments can even get there. And the more stuff that you have buried inside that home, the more, material there is to burn. So, and I think that's a concern for some of them as well. Or maybe even a bigger portion of the concern is that it's not particularly safe for that person living next door if they're living next to a tinderbox, right? That's not being taken care of. So there's a lot that goes into this, most definitely.
So a volunteer crew to come in there and help clean up wouldn't be effective in this case.
No, because the property owner is just unwilling. They don't want them on the property. They're not, have any desire to have anyone come and provide any sort of assistance. This is the way that they want it. And as Chairman Nelson said, I mean, the frustration is really high. To me, they've made every effort short of intervention that they can, and in some cases, they have made efforts at legal intervention, and it's been unsuccessful. So any efforts to try and kind of help them from others in the community, those efforts are kind of come and gone, and I don't think that they're going to be of any benefit or help at this point in time.
Well, I would just ask for a mutual understanding between the board and your office of a couple things, and that's that these would be city-driven. As you've mentioned, this is a city issue. I just want to avoid the perception of someone saying the county attorney is going after this parcel, why not this other parcel that's just as bad in another town? And the answer is, well, the city requested it. I want to make sure that's clear. And then the second thing is, because we've said we're willing to extend this, or you've said you're willing to extend this to other communities, I want to make sure that is followed through on. If there is a request for a nuisance issue, that 28E does come forward, because I also want to avoid the situation where the board is basically picking winners and losers in this situation particularly. And we don't just want to help Cushing if Danbury has a problem that's just as bad. And then we're in the position, I don't want to be in the position where we don't have the bandwidth to serve both. So if that's not possible, it seems like it is, because you said 1 day to prepare in most cases. But if it's not possible, I would just ask that we pare back from all of them.
I agree with that. I don't want to take on something that I'm not able to serve, and I wouldn't have done this if I didn't believe that we could serve. And by serving, I mean, as you indicated, making ourselves available to other communities that might be facing this. But as I said before, the effort here is I'm going to do it one at a time and see if we can be effective, because that's where I think that we've got the resources and capacity to do it in that limited sense. But I'm not here to help one city and not the other. That's not how we serve. So I will follow through with that, Mr. Hunn.
Any other questions or comments for James? I would move approval.
Second.
Motion by Nelson, seconded by Carper. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. Thank you. Item 12 from County Auditor Michelle Scaff, approve up to .460 FTEs to hire temporary clerical help for the 2026 primary election.
So this item is basically, I'm asking to shift what's already budgeted. So for fiscal year '26, we have $20,500 budgeted for temporary employees. In the past, we have always used an outside temp agency to bring in clerical help during the elections. And these are not the precinct election officials that work on election day. These are individuals that actually come into our office and they help with phone calls, they help with stuffing ballots, they help, right now, we have some of our election staff out at Secretary of State training, so we have a temp come in and help field the calls and the elections-related information. And so looking at it, I thought it might be more efficient that we actually run those through our own payroll. And I analyzed just for the primary election, we pay our temporary agency $27.75 per hour, but the clerks only get just under $20 per hour. So with FICA, which would be required if we are the employer, we would save $6.41 per hour if we run it through our own payroll. It also will save a lot of time in creating W-2s on the finance side. We have to send W-2s to all the clerical help, and there's a little bit of juggling that we have to do to get that information into the system. So this will help greatly on that side of the office as well. The total of $20,500 would be equivalent to a .460 equivalent employee, and that is taking out FICA and the wages, and that's about 960 hours. I'm just looking at the primary election right now. I'll be looking at the general election for fiscal year '27 to do the same thing. I think it would be a good thing for the county. Eventually, when I start looking at the numbers of how much we're really paying for this clerical help, there's a potential reduction in the budget. Right now, I'd like to ask that the .46 employee be approved, and I'd entertain any questions. I'd like to determine the quantity of employees to fill that amount of time at my discretion, depending on the election and how many people we have to pull in, but I would not exceed 960 hours for the primary election.
And these employees wouldn't be entitled to health insurance or IPERS or anything like that?
Correct. So if they work 2 quarters and earn over $1,000 a quarter, then IPERS would kick in. That does happen on occasion with some of the other departments that use temporary employees. For the elections, we usually have one in June and we have one in November, so we wouldn't have 2 quarters in a row. There's always a chance to have a special election. And we do have specific individuals that have come time after time, and they have that knowledge base, they have that experience to be able to pull them in and you know, fill that role without a lot of training. I did talk to Melissa about it as far as union concerns, being a temporary employee. I'd like to run it, the pay scale equivalent to what the courthouse employees make. But no health, no sick vacation for temps. They just have wages and FICA.
I guess you probably kind of answered my question, but it just seems like you have people that would already be willing to do this instead of, you know, would it be hard to get people with not using the temp employer to put that out and find people to fill it?
My understanding is it will need to be posted for 10 days. So it still would be posted. If individuals apply, we'll review those. You know, we would encourage individuals who already have worked in the office to apply for those positions, and based on experience and, you know, all of that information will determine who we would bring in.
It seems like it makes sense going down the road too, even for the fall election and everything, so.
Yes.
I think it's great. We can get more hours of work with the same amount of money. So that's
Yes.
great. Thank you for that. I would move approval.
Second.
Motion by Nelson, seconded by Dietrich. Any other discussion, questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item 13 from Secondary Roads, County Engineer Laura Severs. Is item A, consider a variance for the Lawton Bronson Elementary digital sign.
Hello. So why are we talking about a school sign in Bronson? Might be the first question. So that is Farm to Market Road. And so as a city under 500, that right-of-way is yours. So you have discretion if a variance would be allowed that, for a sign that overhangs into your right-of-way. Do we normally allow things to overhang into right-of-way? The answer is no. We want our right-of-ways, roadways clear of anything anyone can hit, anything that people can't see around, for visibility purposes, and all of that. So Lawton Bronson, the elementary in Bronson, is asking for a variance to have a sign that hangs over into your right-of-way. They've done a great job of giving me great information. They did their due diligence at looking at it, and they still feel like they've created a safe place to put the sign, and it hangs over, I think, 3 feet into our right-of-way. From my perspective, I'm not supportive of the variance, and that being that I want our right-of-way always clear. I don't want any liability on this county that I have to take on if I don't have to take it on. There are probably, in their eyes, other places they could put the sign, but they really want it in this location. And I don't mind that. I see what they've done to ask for it specifically here, but I'm still not supportive of anything hanging over, whether it's a foot or 3 feet or 18 feet. So they did come up, I did ask them, I would think that I would want something of a liability statement that, if we have snow removal and it hits it because it's hanging over, it's your cost. Those digital signs are very distracting to drivers. And you have probably young pedestrians, maybe not paying as much attention, and now you have a huge distraction in front of the school that's probably very busy, at least 2 times a day during the school year. And so, again, with all of that, I don't feel like my position in secondary roads should take on that liability for the county. So the variance is up to the board. The variance can be approved, and they can put the sign up because it's actually no physical work is happening in the right-of-way. It is just the hangover of the digital sign. So
Is it on the corner of West and Maple or Second and Maple for the sign? On the east side, is the Second and Maple towards 20? Or West and Maple, West First and Maple is that bottom?
did I put that somewhere in
I
here?
didn't see it in the back, unless I missed it, but I didn't see it.
Sorry, the sign is on Maple Street.
On Maple, okay. But down towards the main entrance, in that big grass area on the corner of West First and Maple. I'm assuming.
It's just east of the school on Maple Street.
Yeah.
Right on that.
Can I submit a picture to the
Move
board?
to receive.
Second?
Motion by Nelson, second by Binger. All those in favor say aye.
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 Post same sign, pass 5-0. I think we'll let Michelle, if you can put that up.
So on the very right side of the screen I see, I don't know if you guys are in the same, but that is, I don't know where you consider the front of the school. Is that on the south side of the school? Okay, so I'm talking on the east side of the school.
Is it kind of where that white number is that says 2188?
Yeah,
That's where they want the sign there. Yeah, right there.
yes. Thank you, Michelle.
I got a call from Superintendent Shook this afternoon. It's very nice, and talked about that this was a joint City of Bronson, Lawton Bronson project, so they're going to use it for promoting events at the school and events in town. I had told him, as you and I talked last week, about checking to see if we had granted variances in other places of the county, as you know, so that we weren't looking at starting a new precedent potentially. And it sounds like we have not allowed a variance like this in other places.
No.
And I know that there are some homes that have variances in the right-of-way that were granted by zoning, but those were under very, very intense hardship situations. Like I know of one that involved they needed a ramp into their home for a special needs child and I don't even think it went into the right of way. It was just closer to the right of way than what they allowed. And so from my experience, it seems like even zoning has been very protective of the right of way area, and that you've got to have pretty serious criteria in order to receive a variance. So I guess I'm not surprised to learn that we haven't done that in other places of the county.
Did he say if they had it, what was their alternate location, do we know, or?
He didn't say. He was, he was just, he was hopeful that it would be approved, but I think they would probably go back to, it sounded like that could go back to the drawing board, figure something out. I mean, obviously this is their first choice, and I understand why. And I told him that, I said, unfortunately, we have to keep right-of-ways clear for a reason, and that we have people that love nothing more than to try to sue the county for any little thing that they think that we have done wrong. And so we don't need to put ourselves in situations where someone can run into it, hurt themselves, and then with their vehicle, and then come after us. I mean, that's why we're clearing trees out of the right of way too, so.
Perhaps that location where that parking stall is at, maybe they could just turn that into an island and back the sign up a few feet.
Right, I just don't want to direct them on what they should do. So I'm mostly concentrating on, the right of way, but I totally see that as a great solution, so.
Well, I do like that they came up with a letter stating that they would take any of the liability off of your shoulders, our shoulders, whatever. But I mean, seeing that there haven't been any other variances allowed in this case, and I think it would, kind of opens them all up to scrutiny if we would, so, I guess, yeah.
Well, the legal question would later become, did we have the authority to grant a variance and to accept their offer of covering for us legally? I'm not sure. I mean, that might be contested. So it's a nice gesture. It's a very nice, letter, but it's a letter.
Well, we have to remember too that the purpose of the right-of-way was, this easement from the landowner was for the purpose of the roadway. And if we all remember, this board shot down traffic cameras in Sergeant Bluff along a county road because we didn't feel that it was, that those property owners that gave that easement, that was what they intended their property to be used for. Because that really had nothing to do with the road. And so now obviously a billboard's a little more, or nicer than a speed camera, right? But I mean, again, it's under that same guise. Was this the purpose of why people gave the county an easement for a road? So,
I'll move to deny.
Second.
motion by Ung to deny, second by Bittinger. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. Item B is the approve, the resolution establishing a lower speed limit on Banner Avenue and 235th Street. Laura?
Yes, so the South Bridge Interchange Project requires dirt to be moved in to obviously raise the approaches so the bridge can go over the interstate. The contractor was able to hopefully find a borrow pit just on the west side of the interstate, but you have to get some of that, half of that material over to the east side of the interstate. So with that, they plan on using Port Neal Road, Dogwood Trail, Banner Avenue, Old Highway 75 to get to that location. I'm concerned with whether it's a haul road or just even construction traffic. The homeowners along that road are going to see a increase in traffic, and I'm concerned that maybe the quiet road that they lived on is going to be greatly affected by the construction that's coming. We are required as the county, whenever there is a project, that we do dust control on roads that are, see an uptick in traffic because of construction projects. It's a DNR requirement. And so we will do that, but dust control doesn't last very long when you have that heavy of loads. So one of the solutions to, I feel, to keep the dust control in place a little bit longer would be to lower the speed limit. We are working with the contractor to also not allow the haul road where two heavy trucks would meet each other. We would like them to maybe bring in material one way and leave the other way. We do that even when we're pouring a concrete bridge. We say you can bring in, a concrete truck this way, but we don't want them meeting and pushing out our soft gravel roads. That's not the purpose of a gravel road. It's low volume, not those kind of volumes that you're gonna see on this kind of project. So that is the intent of this speed limit. I feel like the speed limit could just be changed for the short duration of the project, which is 2 years. I have not reached out to any of the landowners. I'm hopeful that they would understand the intent, but we would send a letter if this resolution is approved, just explaining my position and why I'm doing this temporary speed limit. So let me read that resolution. That the Board of Supervisors of Woodbury County is empowered under the authority of sections 321-255 and 321-285, subsection 4 of the Code of Iowa to determine, upon the basis of an engineering and traffic investigation conducted by the county engineer, that the speed limit of any secondary road is greater than reasonable and proper under the conditions existing, and may determine and declare a reasonable and proper speed limit. And such investigation has been requested and completed, and the county engineer has reached an opinion concerning the reasonable and proper speed for the road listed herein. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Woodbury County Board of Supervisors that the following speed limit be established and appropriate signs erected at the locations described as follows. Banner Avenue, beginning at the intersection of Dodwood Trail, Portnail Road, then southeasterly to 235th Street, a speed limit of 35 miles per hour is established. Continuing on 235th Street at the transition from Banner Avenue, then east to the intersection of Old Highway 75, a speed limit of 35 miles per hour is established. So again, temporary for the construction, and I think everyone will be much happier with the construction and dealing with that traffic if we could post a speed limit.
Yeah, I know I've always gotten complaints in the past about dust and noise and everything when you have haul routes on gravel roads, even temporary, and absolutely understand the longevity of the dust control. And there's also a safety aspect of it too. There's going to be trucks that aren't normally on this road. If someone meets them at 35, it's much more manageable. If they're those people that live there, they're going to be on their routine of maybe never seeing a truck on that road to all of a sudden there could be trucks every, couple of minutes. And so if they're going at nearly half the speed of what's normal, they have time to react and one can move over or whatever they have to do. So I think it's very reasonable.
Yeah, I would agree with that. On the gravel roads, going down to 35, especially if those trucks do go 35, it's gonna make it a lot safer when they're hauling, and there's gonna be a lot of them, especially meeting them and stuff like that. So, yeah, not only the dust control, but the safety of it as well. So.
Any questions for Laura? I would move it.
Second.
Motion by Nelson, seconded by Dietrich. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Item 14 from Board Administration Ryan Erickson. Item A is approval of bond council engagement agreement for proposed issuance of not to exceed $19,500,000 general obligation capital loan notes.
Yeah, item A is the agreement with Allers Cooney that they will be the bond counsel attorneys for this project. And we have used them in the past and I've had very good success with them.
I think that they're pretty much the best in the business. A lot of entities use them, so. Any questions for Ryan? I would move it.
Second.
Motion by Nelson, seconded by Bittenger. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. Item B is approval of resolution to fix April 28th, 2026 at 4:40 PM for a meeting to authorize a loan agreement in the issuance of not to exceed $19,500,000 general obligation capital loan notes. This is the Urban Renewal Authority. Ryan?
And the first thing I want to stress is the fact that we are not issuing $19.5 million twice. This is per suggestion from Jason at Allers Cooney. He suggests to hold 2 separate public hearings so we could have authority to issue it under 2 different sections of the code, dependent on what happens with the Iowa legislature. If they, do make some drastic changes, then if we can't use Urban Renewal Authority, we'd have to use the other. So that's why there's 2 public hearings for the same bond issuance. But as I said, we're not issuing 19.5 million twice.
And that's why for item C, when we get there, it says non-urban renewal economic development, so. But thank
And
you for
also,
that.
it's not, the project does not, at the moment, is not estimated to be 19.5, but we set it at that level, so in case there's, any other issues, and that 19.5 was established by using the project cost before any, because we do have a couple grants to offset the total cost. So the total cost is estimated to be in the $18 million range, so we put it up a little bit to 19.5, but that is not what we expect to issue in the end.
Any questions for Ryan? Thank you, Ryan. I would move it.
Second.
Motion by Nelson, seconded by Dietrich. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Passed 5-0. Then item C is approval of resolution to fix April 28th, 2026 at 4:45 PM for a meeting to authorize a loan agreement in the issuance of not to exceed $19,500,000 general obligation capital loan notes, non-urban renewal economic development.
As I said, again, this isn't a separate bond issue. This is just using a different authority to issue the same debt. And that decision will be made, closer to when we actually need to issue. And I do have something that I need to have you guys receive. There was an engineer report that the document says is attached, but I did not get it attached, so I'd like you to.
Move to receive.
Second.
Motion by Nelson, seconded by Dietrich. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Passed 5-0. Okay.
Because in section 3 of this document, it says a county engineer has compiled data and prepared a report, a copy of which is attached, and that copy is what I just gave you.
Okay. Any other questions for Ryan? I would move it.
Second.
Motion by Nelson, seconded by Bittenger. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. Thank you, Ryan. Item 15, budget review discussion for FY '27 miscellaneous review of all funds.
I really don't have anything specific on this, and unfortunately, I must have been thinking too much about going to Chicago than getting ready for, if Michelle wants to display my screen, I can just at least show you what the summary is after the last board meeting. And this is where it was a pass to change the levy rates to be equal countywide as of last year. So the revenue budget includes that now. And then where we stand in current expenditures shows you where the increase or decrease in each fund would be, and then where the projected ending reserve level would be at the end of, because we made the change to lower the transfer from supplement to basic. So now that ending cash balance is about $100,000. So that's right now the fund by fund summary.
And Ryan, just so we're on the same page, we've got a bill to pay for the roundabout for this fiscal year. This projection year already has that amount taken out as far as the reserves, correct?
Yes, that
Okay.
is out of general basic, which I will bring up for next week in the board to approve that payment, and then we'll make sure which fund it. But right now, I have it coming out of general basic. And that is included in the projected cash balance as of 6/30 of '26.
Okay, thank you. Anything for the good of the cause on the budget review? None? All right, well then, thank you for that, Ryan. We will jump ahead to reports on committee meetings. Kent, do you have anything?
No, sir.
Dave? I don't have anything either, so we'll move on to item 17 then, citizen concerns.
James Loomis, 1927 Old Highway 141 Bronson. I just wanted to take a moment and thank all the folks that serve on the local volunteer fire departments over the weekend. As Dan mentioned earlier, I think that's a great testament to community and the communities we have in Woodbury County. On Saturday and what happened with the fire, I'm greatly appreciative of all the services provided by those local fire departments and all that they do. And so I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of myself and behalf of my family. There's a lot of effort and time put in by these volunteers. They definitely care about what they do and they care about their communities. And so I just wanted to say thank you and echo what Dan said earlier.
Thank you, James. Any other public comments? Quiet crowd. Laura's coming up, okay.
Hello, Laura Severs, Woodbury County Engineer. During that big grass fire that I got to, witness firsthand the amount of people that were helping in that situation, and obviously it could have been a lot worse. We did have a bridge afterwards need to be closed because of the damage that was done to it from the fire. It's pretty amazing that we had fire departments out there. They tried to, take care of the bridge as best they could. But, that older wood just loves to soak up and absorb that fire and heat and all of that. And so do you mind if I would tell you a little bit about how that structure is doing and why it's closed?
That'd be fine.
Okay. So obviously the wooden parts of that bridge were the back wall of the bridge and also the deck that's below the granular material. So with all of that timber on that structure, it actually even warped the steel that is very strong structural components on that bridge. So what do we do when all of a sudden a bridge needs to be closed? We quickly start looking through the list of what bridges can be moved. what I've been looking at is a 10-year bridge replacement program that has 36 bridges that need to be replaced. Those are bridges that are posted or closed, posted at half of the weight that's a legal load. So anything less than 20 tons, posted below 20 tons, I'm looking at how can we fit these all in using local budget dollars. I'm going to max borrow ahead on our bridge program. So if we decide to slide a bridge like this in that is pretty vital to being used to get traffic in and out of Bronson and for agricultural purposes, because this is in an area where you don't have a lot of straight roads, you know, I feel like some of those things create a priority for this bridge. And so, you know, are you willing to move 30 bridges down another year to slide this one in? Where do you find the funds for that? You know, I assumed that there is no insurance that is going to cover a bridge like this, and I was told there is correct, no insurance money. This bridge would qualify to use our highway bridge fund, so it wouldn't have to be local dollars, and that money is available. But that also means sacrificing every bridge a year back. But it can be done, and so, and I guess I should say, the reason why I'm looking at replacing it, some of the things that I look at as is, it's probably gonna cost, you know, a third to half of a new bridge to fix it. So if it's gonna give you half the life, why don't we go through all the regulatories with a replacement versus a repair? A repair, though, gets the bridge open quicker too, so that is something to consider. But when I spend money on a bridge, I want to replace it. I don't want to spend a third to a half of the money I would have gotten a new bridge, and half the life out of it with, you know. So it's how you, I feel like that's how you spend money to get ahead and eventually ahead. But that is where we're at with that bridge. There were other bridges that were damaged. Not structural components so heavy, you know, and normal loads can go over those bridges, but more, you know, like sidewalls and things like that, just that are made of timber need to be replaced now. So, and we'll do that with our own materials and our own equipment.
Yeah, well, I feel for those people down there because there's, as you said, there's not a lot of straight roads, but then the board closed a bridge on 180th Street, so just 2 miles north of there, a little bit west last fall, a bridge that failed inspection, and is a pretty big bridge. What is your best guess as far as the replacement cost, full replacement cost on this bridge?
So this bridge is currently, I think, 39 feet long, 24 feet wide. Usually we have to make bridges just a little bit longer. And we do them all at 30 foot wide, so 50 by 30 at $250 a square foot. I don't know, is that $350, $325, something like that? So in the 300s. So not a big, you know, it's not near $1 million bridge, so there isn't as much money you have to find, but yeah, it's not cheap, and obviously it can't be done tomorrow. We do know that it takes us a while to get through those regulatory processes that we have to do, so.
And that was, okay, so that's a good segue to my next question is, if the board, we'll say hypothetically, if the board found the money next week that we had, that your 50 by 30 by 250 comes out at 375, I just
Okay.
did the math here, but
Okay.
if the board found the money next week, what would a timeline for replacement on that be?
Paying it locally very much quickens the process, because then we're not going through DOT lettings and such. We still have to meet the same requirements, you're just not asking as many people for approval on the project. I would say next construction season, it could be being constructed.
So summer of like 27
Seven.
or something like that, yeah, about over a year out.
Thanks for putting me on the spot.
And I won't hold you to anything, I just.
But that's just
curious,
it.
you know.
You would hope that would be quick enough. You would hope that geez, you would hope that you could even, do it sooner than that, but, that's usually a reasonable, give me 12 months to get everything designed, approved, and out the door to get bid.
Mr. Chair, it
Yes.
might be a good idea to make this an agenda item, so
For sure.
there's not a lot of deliberation going on.
For sure. Thank you. Any other comments, Laura?
No, I just wanted to keep you guys aware, because I'm sure that a lot of people are asking, so. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizen concerns? All right, then we will move into board concerns. Kent?
Not so much a concern, I just want to say thank you to a few people. Post 662 Legion Hall out of Sergeant Bluff, just want to thank them for sending me some cards while I was in the hospital. And also Gene Logan and Community Action Agency. And I want to thank Supervisor Bittinger for coming up to see me, pray with me, appreciate that. And also, of course, my family members too, so.
We're glad you're back and feeling better, Kent, so. Dave, you have anything?
Well, I'm just gonna echo the stuff that's already been said, but just, a big thank you to all the volunteers, departments, inside, outside the county, all the emergency services, farmers, anybody that were out there, to battle that fire. It was, I think I heard something today that said, and this probably isn't a record that we want, but it is one of the biggest burns in the state of Iowa in history. So that's, quite significant with those winds and what they all went through, and just the need for our emergency services, and, especially, I think we're talking about a truck out there at Climbing Hill as well that fills those air packs. So just big thanks to all those people.
Dan, Matthew, anything? Yeah, I mean, you had incredible volunteer help, and then you had, the paid staff here from sheriffs to EMS to emergency management, comm center, conservation was out there, secondary roads. They had big days this weekend, but we had a young man that was recently hired in the comm center. It was his third month on the job, that was in charge of coordinating all this activity when this happened, and I've heard that he was incredible. And so, very proud that we have someone like that, that can step in. I'm sure it was thought it maybe be an easy Saturday, and he had maybe one of the busiest days that the comm center has had in many, many, many years, and was new on the job. So I'm glad to hear that, and I'm glad that, we have good faith in Travis out there, and Wendy and all those folks out at the comm center, and it's important that we have good people on that end of the phone. So I wanted to pass that along, and I'm sure that he or somebody in their family probably is listening or hear these comments, and so I just wanted to pass on some praise. But seeing no other concerns,